Hey, Bundle Baby. I just always gotta say that. Just a quick update for my fans who need to hear my voice. Day 2 of my actual job. Like I said, it's just like my other job, only amped up like by at least 4 times. I'm running a cone crusher, which really takes 2 people to operate efficiently. Yeah, it's basically a screen and a crusher, and then it doesn't mix different materials, but it like you put different types of screen in, and the stacker, the last conveyor belt basically is like a big ass huge one. It's the same kind that we used at DIA, 2 weeks ago or whenever we did that. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, I think. And this is a bigger pit. This is sort of different with big ass loaders running around, haul trucks, which are just like on-site kind of dump trucks, sort of. And no, not those big like mine trucks, but they're like they just are what they are. And they've got contracts with like different counties, and there's a bunch of trucks, and this is just like more wham bam, blam slam type shit. And it's important that the mixes are the right, and I'm learning how to measure that stuff out, and there's a whole process to test it to make sure it's the right shit. Oh, what the hell? They have a skid steer that they just have on site, so that's nice. And they have a bucket, a rake, and forks. 2 different buckets, one with a straight edge, one with a teeth, because this is a lot more rocky material. That's why it's a cone crusher. And it's a mobile one, but it's set up, so it's not, it doesn't move. So it's not like a huge one, but it's big enough to get the job done. And so that's nice. It's kind of funny. I was shoveling, underneath the belts and whatnot, and the supervisor came by, and he kind of thought it was funny. He's like, you don't have to work that hard, and it's like, cool. He's all, I appreciate, that you're keeping yourself busy, but, it is what it is. And there's like more idle time, with the other place, it was just, if you had a moment, you had to, like when the loader was loading trucks, I had to, take that opportunity to run around to the other side and shovel out from under the, the discharge belt, and then shovel over here. And with this one, you've actually got kind of, some idle time that you just sort of kind of babysit shit. But you do have to clean out the cone every morning, and you got to do it from underneath. So you got to slide basically between the, I don't know what you would call that belt, but it's the belt that runs the crushed raw. Well, I'll skip the details of how a cone crusher screen combination works. You can just look it up on YouTube if you're interested. If you're really, really interested. But you got to slide in. You can probably even look that up, how to clean a cone. But you got to slide in between the belt, and there's not a lot of room in there. And it's kind of a pain in the ass. You kind of got to clean the clay out. And crowbar is best to use, but this guy's only been there. He was being trained by a guy who was there for 6 months, but they had to fire him because he kept making mistakes. He was actually a good, knowledgeable employee. I guess he just got in a hurry or complacent or something, and he did a couple goofs in the skid steer and messed some things up. But this guy, I think, has only been there for like 3 or 4 months. I've been there 2 days. But me being me, I'm already thinking, dude, you're working too hard. Number one, you need a bigger crowbar. You need to slide under there with a little crowbar and a big crowbar, with a sharper edge. Okay, and I got one. I'm gonna bring it tomorrow. You can use the hammer, so slide under there with a little crowbar, a big crowbar, a little sledgehammer mallet, and maybe even our vests have pockets, maybe some like chisels, with the little hammer spot on the back to kind of get in the corners and whatnot. And I have a corded rotary hammer, which is basically a mini jackhammer. And I just ordered a cordless one with 2 batteries and a charger, because of course it doesn't come with that shit. And I ordered, DeWalt, okay? Because you order, all the imitation shit. There's a lot of tools out there that are yellow and black, red and black, or silver, or blue. Although I don't think they really make Milwaukee tools anymore. Maybe they do. I don't know. I suppose you can find them. But, what was the red one again? No, that was Milwaukee. The blue was Makita. Yeah, I don't know. But, or kind of a light green. But anyway, I got that on order. It's supposed to be here on Saturday. So, I told that, to my coworker dude. I didn't tell him, it's like, dude, you're working way too hard, but I show up and I'm like, no. And he's actually older than me. Not by a lot, so it's not like he's some 22-year-old, full of piss and vinegar. Yeah, just get in there with your fucking toothpick and just hang upside down and fucking clean that shit. Then I stroll in, the old bull, the young bull and the old bull. I'm going to run down there and fuck me a heifer. I'm going to walk down there and fuck them all. Anyway, I'm not talking shit. Although I did say that. He's all, man, I don't remember what he said. He was like, you're way better at this shit than me. And this is your second day. So he was just kind of blowing smoke up my ass. But whatever. I'm like, no, actually... No, he said something about this blue collar stuff. You're better at it than me, and I don't know. Because like I said, I don't. I'm checking the cone every 15 minutes, right? So if it builds up, I can start scraping that shit, while it's still running. I know that sounds dangerous, but it is what it is. It's not like I crawl in there. If you have to do something like that, then you do a lockout, tag out, try out. So whoever's working on it, you put your padlock on it. Turn the key, take the key with you, and it's got your name on it and all that stuff, and nobody can turn it on. So you lock out, tag out, and then try it to make sure it works or doesn't work. But anyway, that's how I roll. You know what I mean? But this guy's sort of a little bit more lax. Doesn't check it as often. And sometimes the clay, because there's a lot of clay in the dirt. It's wet. It's not dry. If it were dry, then you'd have to worry about, silica dust and all that stuff. As far as dust goes, I do carry my N95 mask in my fanny pack. And we're required to wear, hard hat, vest. I got my goggles. The same shit I had on the other side, sun protector, sun visor, earmuff, ear protection that I just move forward if I don't want to use them and whatnot. I even wear a headband. I probably look like a dork. I do not have my goggles around my neck anymore, that I had to have in case of dust storms at the other place. Still got them, I just don't wear them around my neck. I don't think this will be an issue. But anyway, there's a lot less dust with this particular operation, but it does kind of have some dust that kind of comes out the bottom. But they actually have a like a misting system that you can turn on during the summer if it's really, because during the summer the clay won't be as dry or wet. I mean, but the way they mine it out of there, it is what it is. It's just something you got to deal with. So anyway, that's what you got to clear out in the morning. And so I told him, he said, well, we better run that past, our supervisor, because we've always done it by hand. It seems to me like it wouldn't matter, but you never know. Because all it is a little jackhammer. and it's a compact one. And like I said, you can just hold it up there because it's tight up there. I mean, I can maneuver in there, you know, to kind of get into this corner and get these sides, and then stand up, because you kind of have to. You can't fully stand up, but you kind of got to squeeze yourself up in there and grab the shit that's off the ledge. It's a pretty ridiculous job. It really is. And you know, he told me that from the get-go. He's all like, "I assure you, it's not fun." And he was not lying. It is a pain in the ass. You got to just squeeze between the little thing there. You got to hop up on the conveyor and, you know, pull yourself under there. And now you're in there. And like I said, if I were, you know, a big dude, because like I said, I'm on the shorter side of things. I'm not short, but, you know, and I told him that, and he laughed, you know, and he's like, "You know, any chunks still in there?" And I'm like, "I managed to get turned around in here. I didn't have to slide out and then slide in head first." And I said, it's one of the few advantages of being a shorter, you know, smaller stature person. And, you know, when I say that, you know, I'm like a stout dude, right? You know, I'm like a miniature big guy, right? And like I said, you know, I'm not, you know, in the shape that I want to be yet. And oh, by the way, this is the same deal. This shit's killer on your arms, you know, forearms, biceps, triceps, and shoulders. Just the type of work that we're doing. The work with the cleaning the cone, you know, is really get your shoulders going. It just is what it is. There's like this little section where you can go up there and kind of pick shit out the belt, you know, and that kind of is good on your forearms, because you grab a hunk of clay, you know, and kind of twist it so you can get a hold of it and then toss it off the side. You're not standing on a ladder. It's like a little platform thing. And that's not like something you have to do all the time, but if it's a batch of dirt that's bad, then yeah, you know, you're up there. It would behoove you. Oh, so anyway, we got these little things that they built. They're like these gravity fed, dirt runs through them, these spindles, and the idea is to catch those big chunks, because they get in there and they just sort of build up, and then it clogs up, and then the rocks build up, and you have to open the opening so the rocks fall out, and then you scrape the clay off and raise it back up. And you know, it's a pain in the ass, but it's not a huge deal. But you're not making material. And you know, our goal every day is to make 2,000 tons of material. So that's a lot of shit, dog. And like I said, they've got some big accounts. You know, construction companies. You know, cities that are, you know, redoing dirt roads or making roads. I mean, they're heavy hitters. You know, these are kind of the big boys. As what my last company was like, you know, they had a lot of big accounts and stuff, but they also had a lot of small ones. You know, it's like, oh, we got an order for this, you know, 25 tons, 100 tons. We had one job that was like 600 tons. One 2,000 tons every fucking day. And it took us a few days to do that because of the machine that we were using. You kind of had to move it off to the side and stack it as high as you could, kind of drive up on the pile a bit. You know, we didn't make it all at once. You know, we did that, you know, for like, you know, a week. And the trucks would come in and zippity doo dah. But the one spindle kind of kicks it to the middle, then another spindle kicks it to the right side, and then another one kicks it out. But I noticed that some of the big chunks get past that spindle. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to buy me a welder, buy me a cutting torch, you know, crawl up there with a ladder and look how that shit's made. And I'll just make one on my own time. And of course, run it past my supervisor. but say, well, actually, I shouldn't make that on. They have a welder. It's a big fucking thing. Because when I was watching, what's his name, and I was doing the cutting and the grinding and shit, but he was doing the actual welding, and I was doing the cutting with a grinder, not a cutting torch. It got me back up to speed, on how that shit works. So I need to buy me a little basic, welder with an inverter. And, I'll have a torch and all that shit, in my shed. I mean, I'll have my hoist, everything set up, things to make, different size cables, lengths, clamps, chains, hoses. It's not going to be a hardware store, but I need shit. But, again, they do most of their own, repairs, and it's just yanking parts, right? So I'm going to get up to speed really quick on that. Because at the other place, they did the same thing, but they had like a designated mechanic. There is really no designated, mechanic. It's just us. But he's been there for longer than me, so he knows the machine better. And like I said, when I say mechanic, it's not like engine mechanic. It's like, okay, we're going to pull this seal out. Okay, take this guard off, loosen this bolt, so we can loosen the tensioner, replace the bolt, ratchet it back, just, you know what I mean? It's pretty straightforward, basic shit. But, it takes time, and it's not a matter of if but when. Oh, shit. What the hell was I talking about? Oh, yeah, one more spindle. And say just put it right, just up above it, farther, So widen this gap a little bit, and actually, and like, I think he'd be down with it, because like I said, what's his name said, you don't have to catch the big ones. The spindle will get that, just the small and medium sized ones. So me being there my second day, actually yesterday, my first day, I noticed that, okay, yeah, that's true for the most part, but some of these, big ones still get by. And those big ones are the ones that are kind of a problem. They're the ones that kind of get stuck, on the cone, and then, the rocks can't slide there, and they pile up, and then you got to go through that, 15-minute process of clearing that. So I think my supervisor would be down with that. So, anyway, and I'll ask them how they made them. Did they cut them out of a, I think they probably bought them, and they just set up, how they were set up, right? So these spindles are probably something that's standard, equipment for, quarries and gravel pits and shit like that. I'm gonna guess, and that's exactly what they're designed for, is to move material to one side and then, kick it out, a little gate that you got for it. Well, it's not kicking out all the big shit. Most of it is. But anyway, so things are the way they are. There's this door that's bent, and he just pops around it with a hammer. And I'm thinking, no, we need to get us a breaker bar or a cheater bar. So, and that'll, if not get the whole damn thing, get most of it, and then maybe you just got to use a hammer at the end. So I'm not trying to, besmirch my coworker, but it's like, dude, am I lazy or smart or both? Because shit, man. I haven't heard from my other former coworker, the one with ADHD, and I probably won't. I can't vouch for him, so I'll just tell him, well, I'm not sure. The guy's hard to get a hold of. My suggestion would be, just to fill out an application. So, but I don't think I'll hear from him because he's too loyal to them boys over there. He sees them, as godlike status, all three of them. So, I'll probably never hear from him again, which, doesn't hurt my feelings. But if I do, say I'm not going to contact him. I did just sort of because he was hurting for money, and he was wanting, more hours, and he's having trouble saving it. He doesn't understand the concept of just saving money, so so I, kind of felt obligated, hey, you know, you want to make considerably more money than you're making now, huh? I mean, I don't know what they're paying him, because they pay, kind of differently based on what you bring to the table. So, um, but because, like I said, it was a decent job. It wasn't the greatest job in the world. I mean, no overtime kills a person's paycheck. You know, but for 40 hours a week, you know, it was a good job. Maybe on the lower end of livable wage, but you know you could get her done. So I don't know, but so I felt obligated, but now I did my duty, for lack of a better word. If he's interested, you know, then he'll follow up on it. If not, no big deal. Lucille. So anyway, so that's just my quick little spewing in no particular order, just kind of all over the place. Second day on the job, I'm already, brainstorming, thinking, I don't know. I got a couple ideas. Like I said, even with the crowbar, it's like, dude, I have a crowbar that would work way better than this. I didn't say that. I'm just going to show up with it tomorrow and say, hey, try this. I got a small one, too. I got a big damn one and a smaller one. Because he's using like one of these old school ones. It's all dull and shit. It's like, no, man, you want this one. And when it gets dull, you sharpen it. So, yeah. Anyway, sweet, sweet Katie Boo, thinking of you, boo thing.